and his misgivings about what they were doing? Do I have the names there?
Yeah. There were people who opposed the Mexican War. We forget that. There were people who opposed all wars. There were always dissidents. Well, look, Thoreau went to prison in Massachusetts because he refused to pay taxes to support the war. And as you point out, there were soldiers in the Mexican War who saw what we were doing. And, there were, a lot of people don't know this, there were thousands and thousands of soldiers who, after we invaded Mexico, deserted from our army and wouldn't fight anymore because they got tired of the bloodshed. And they were asking themselves, what in the world are we doing here? What good are we doing? We're just killing people and killing ourselves. And this is something that not a lot of people know. Some Irish immigrants who had joined the army out of kind of desperation, really, and then found themselves in the war in Mexico. They deserted to the Mexican side, formed a battalion called St. Patrick's Battalion, and they actually fought with the Mexicans against the United States. And the Mexicans every year celebrate what they call the San Patricio Battalion. So we've always had dissidents. Like today, we have Iraq Veterans Against the War. Our own soldiers come back from Iraq. They hold hearings, the Winter Soldier hearings recently around Washington, D.C., and telling about the terrible things they did and saw in Iraq. So that's encouraging that we have always had Americans who have protested war, who've resisted war, and who, in the case of Vietnam, brought that resistance to such a point that the government that has finally had to stop the war.
And now, I think that's really important. It goes back to what you were saying about this isn't unpatriotic. The fact that the American government has waged war since it was created is not necessarily the fault of all the people who've lived here all along, and there's a long tradition of people opposing these policies all along in this country. But it's important that we look at the history because, as Harry Brown used to say, history doesn't begin on September 11th, or as others have pointed out, history doesn't begin in 1939. And we have to look at the larger context so we understand where we are. A lot of people do believe that history begins on 9/11. They came out of the clear blue sky and attacked us for no reason at all. And in your article, The End of Empire, that's under Tom Englehart's name at antiwar.com, you point out that actually what happened before 9/11 was a lot of imperialism, and it became an excuse for just more of the same.
Oh, yeah, the Bush administration really seized upon 9/11, and they used it not to ask serious, intelligent questions about why 9/11 happened, and is it possible that our policies in the Middle East have infuriated huge numbers of people, led to fanaticism, and led to this violence against us. Instead of asking such intelligent and probing questions, the Bush administration immediately used the opportunity to send an army into Afghanistan and to bomb those people. 3,000 and more innocent people in Afghanistan died under our bombs. That's more people than were killed in the Twin Towers. And it was an excuse to go into Afghanistan. It became an excuse to go into Iraq. And, that's what imperialism has always done. It has looked for excuses. They've done this, they've done that, and therefore we must go to war. But, fortunately, I think more Americans have gotten wise to this, and now, 80% of the American people don't believe in this war, and that's good. Our problem is to translate that 80% opposition into national policy by getting rid of this administration.
Well, it's almost over. All right, everybody, that's Howard Zinn. He is Professor Emeritus in the Political Science Department at Boston University. He's the author of A People's History of the United States and the new one, A People's History of American Empire. Again, you can find his most recent article with Tom Englehart at antiwar.com/Englehart. It's called The End of American Empire. Thanks very much, sir.
Oh, thanks so much for inviting me. Good luck.